A Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder, Chapter 23, Part 1. Hannah pushed open her condo door and caught a flash of orange out of the corner of her eye. Moish had just jumped down from his perch on the top of the television set, and he looked about as guilty as a cat could look. She glanced at the screen and realized that a nature program was on. One that was running footage of a flock of flamingos flapping their bright pink wings. "Those birds are 4 times your size, Moish." Hannah gave him a scratch under the chin to let him know that she wasn't angry. When she'd unlocked the door, her fierce feline hunter had been in the process of hanging over the top of the set to bat at the birds with his paw. Once she'd switched off the enticing flamingos and hung up her jacket, Hannah walked out to the kitchen to fill Moish's food bowl. Of course it was empty. It was always empty. Moish's favorite activities when she was gone were eating and napping. There were 3 messages on her answering machine. The first was from her downstairs neighbor, Sue Plotnick, asking if she could serve cookies at her Mommy and Me class next week. Hannah penciled it in on her kitchen calendar. She transferred it to the one at the cookie jar when she went in on Monday. Then she listened to her second message. It was from a man who identified himself as Robert Collins from Hideaway Resorts, who invited her to a complimentary dinner for prospective timeshare investors at a hotel in Minneapolis. Hannah didn't bother to write down his toll-free number. The third message made Hannah perk up her ears. It was from Bill, and he told her that he just wanted to keep her up to speed. The manager from Compaq's Unlimited had contacted him this morning. Since she still didn't have the printout, she'd called all their other car lots, and one of them had handled a rental for a customer with a Lake Eden address. Boyd Watson had rented a black Compact from their St. Paul lot on Tuesday. Naturally, Bill had it checked out. He'd called the principal, Mr. Purvis, and he'd found out that Coach Watson had been attending a statewide coaching clinic at the time. Since Boyd hadn't come back to town until noon on Wednesday, that ruled him out as a possible suspect. Hannah's forehead furrowed as she poured herself a glass of Diet Coke and carried it into the living room. When Marianne had said that she'd driven to Minneapolis to go shopping with Boyd, she'd assumed that Marianne had picked him up and they'd gone to the Mall of America together. But Marianne had said that she'd met her brother at the mall. Boyd must have had his rental car by then. But why would Coach Watson go to the trouble and expense of renting a car for less than 24 hours when his sister was coming to meet him? It just didn't make sense. She sighed and reached out to pet Moish, who'd forsaken his food dish for the soft cushion of the couch and her company. Had Coach Watson been behind the wheel of the black Compact that Mr. Harris had seen roaring out of Cozy Cow driveway? The timetable was tight, but it was possible that Boyd had left before dawn while Marianne and his mother were still asleep and driven to Lake Eden. His last name began with a W, and he could have been the one to meet Max. If Marianne and her mother had slept until 9, Boyd might have had time to shoot both Max and Ron and get back before they woke up. But what possible motive could Coach Watson have for killing Max? Hannah thought back to everything that she'd learned about the Watsons. Daniel's ring had cost $1,000, and the dress she'd worn to the Woodleys' party had sold for over $500. Boyd and Daniel lived in a very expensive house, and Daniel didn't work. Boyd drove a new Jeep Grand Cherokee, and Daniel had a new Lincoln. How could Coach Watson afford to maintain their expensive lifestyle on teacher's salary? Boyd got a personal loan from Max, Hannah exclaimed, causing Moish to rear back and stare at her. "Sorry, Moish, I didn't mean to shout, but it's the only thing that makes sense. There weren't any loan papers for him, but the safe was open, and he would have taken them right after he shot Max. And then he killed Ron because Ron had seen him with Max." Moish turned to give her a long, level look, and then he hopped off the couch and padded into the kitchen to his food bowl. He yowled once, calling for her to get out the kitty crunchies, and Hannah went off to comply. Moish was the most intelligent cat she'd ever met. He was waiting for her to fill up his food bowl because she knew that she had to leave again. Daniel opened the door several inches but no wider. "Hi, Hannah. I'm busy right now. Could you come back a bit later?" "No." Hannah wedged her foot into the crack. "It's important, Daniel. Is Boyd home?" "No, he's not. He's got football practice at the school." "Good. That'll give us some time alone. We have to talk, Daniel." "But I have to put some makeup. I was just taking a nap," and Daniel's voice trailed off and she gave a little sob. "Please, Hannah, I don't want you to see me like this." Hannah made one of her instant decisions. Right or wrong, she was coming in. Never one to dither once she'd made up her mind, she simply pushed Daniel back and stepped inside. "Oh, Hannah!" Daniel's hands flew up to her face, but not before Hannah had spotted a black eye and red welts in the shape of a handprint across her left cheek. "Good God, Daniel!" Hannah reached out to shut the door. "What happened to you?" Never mind," Hannah interrupted what was bound to be some sort of hastily fabricated story. "Come on, let's get some ice on your face." "I don't have any." "I'll find something." Hannah took her arm and led her into the kitchen. "Are you sure he's not coming back?" Daniel managed to look even more embarrassed. "Who? The intruder?" "Your husband." Hannah opened the freezer and rummaged around for something that would work as an ice pack. "You don't have to pretend with me, Daniel. I know he beat you up." "How do you know that?" One of Daniel's eyes opened wide in surprise, but the other one was almost swollen shut. Hannah drew out a package of frozen peas, whacked it against the counter to loosen the contents, and handed it to her, along with a kitchen towel that was draped over the handle of the stove. "Sit down at the table, wrap the peas in the towel, and hold it up to your eye. I'll get another one for your cheek." "Thank you, Hannah." Daniel sank down in a chair. "This is all my fault. I forgot to fill up the ice trays." Hannah pulled out another package of frozen peas and wrapped it in a clean towel from the drawer. She held it up to Daniel's cheek and sighed deeply. "It's not your fault, Daniel. Hold that one with your other hand and tell me where you keep the coffee." "I don't have any. I ran out and I forgot to buy more. That's why Boyd got so mad at me." Hannah bristled. There had been a couple of mornings when she thought she might kill for a cup of coffee, but she hadn't really meant it literally. "How about tea?" "I've got some instant. It's in the cupboard over the stove, and there's a hot water spigot on our sparklets dispenser." Hannah found 2 cups, spooned in instant tea and a generous helping of sugar, and filled them with steaming water from the dispenser. She carried one over to Daniel and set hers down on the other side of the table. Hannah didn't like tea, but that didn't matter. Sharing tea gave them a common bond. "Let me look at your cheek." "It feels better." Daniel removed the towel and managed a small smile. "I never even thought about using frozen peas before. I guess it's true when they say that vegetables are good for you." Daniel's sad attempt at humor made Hannah see red. Daniel had said she'd never thought about using frozen peas before. This obviously wasn't the first time that Coach Watson had battered his wife. Hannah thought about trying to convince Daniel to press charges or offering her advice about how she could get out of her abusive situation, but that could wait until later. Right now, she had to find out if Boyd Watson was a murderer as well as a wife-beater. "It looks a lot better," Hannah assured her. "Have some tea, and then hold it there for a couple of minutes." Daniel nodded and took a sip of her tea. "You put a lot of sugar in." "Sugar's good for shock." Hannah retrieved the bag of black and white cookies she'd brought in from her truck. "Have a cookie. They're chocolate." Daniel reached for a cookie and nibbled at it. "These are good, Hannah." "Thanks. Do you have a headache?" "It's not a concussion, Hannah. I know the symptoms." "I'll bet you do," Hannah thought. If she remembered correctly, Daniel had been in the hospital several times in the past. Once for a broken leg, and other times for less serious injuries. She'd always claimed that she'd been clumsy and fallen on the ice, or broken something skiing, or been in a boat accident while she was fishing with her husband. Hannah remembered her sister's comment about Daniel's clothes and how they always covered her completely. That should have set off alarm bells in Hannah's mind, especially since Joanne had already told her that Daniel used theatrical makeup for facial blemishes. The only thing that erupted on Daniel Watson's face was her husband's bad temper.